coming. It's obvious this is something we need to talk about, wouldn't you say? My name's Tom Dixon. I'm a deacon here at First Baptist. And before we start, I'd like to open us with prayer. Father God, thank you for the wisdom we can get through understanding. Thank you for experts who can provide that understanding. Help us, Lord, to be receptive to new knowledge so that we can have that wisdom. Protect us from deceptive people who wish to harm us. Lord, be with us today in this discussion. We pray in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. Is everybody here okay? You hear back there? Okay, great. We're here to get understanding, wisdom, if you will, about scams and how to avoid them so they don't hurt us. We have the privilege today of having with us Susan Johnson, Vice President from Service First Bank, and Detectives Rowe and Bernoni from Sarasota. So they have all the answers for us. All right? They're here to share their knowledge about scams so that we have a better understanding of how to avoid them. I said I was a deacon. The deacons, among other things, have two responsibilities in a church at First Baptist. First and foremost, to make sure the gospel is preached and taught in our church, and to make sure opportunities are available for people who worship here to know our Lord and Savior. We're the spiritual leaders of the church, if you will. The second responsibility we take here is that to make sure members of the church who are hurting spiritually, economically, or in any other way can get some help. So we're here in the business of providing understanding, if you will. The gospel is preached so we have spiritual understanding, and so that the Holy Spirit can convict persons of their need for Christ. Our responsibility is to get the gospel out. If a person rejects the Holy Spirit's convicting, that's their choice. Same with scams, and that's what we're about today. Get the information out. The deacons of the church heard of members losing retirement savings because they didn't understand the consequences of some of their actions. We felt a responsibility to provide some understanding. However, even with understanding of scams, we could be outsmarted, but hopefully less so after today's discussion. Things have changed drastically over our lifetime, if you think about it. And we need to update our new understanding, which is why we're here today. Early in my career in public accounting, I went to my client's office with my worksheets in my briefcase. They were secure because I had the handle of my briefcase. They were secure. A random thief on the street, if he grabbed this briefcase, it was just a bunch of junk to them. They didn't get anything of value, right? Well, times have changed. Excel is great. No more paper worksheets. But who knows who has access to them on my computer without proper security? Another instance, we're sitting in a deacon's meeting here in this room, and I said something to the person next to me, and his phone answered my question. Scary, huh? Scary. Life has changed for the better with all these conveniences, but there are consequences if we don't understand what we're doing. Be defensive. When I'm driving, I enter a intersection, I look to the right, I look to the left, I look back to the right before I go through the intersection. I'm defensive. I worry about what's coming at me. We have to be defensive people on the telephone, defensive people on our computer. Sorry to say, we have to be skeptical. We have to be skeptical in this age. Reagan used to say, trust and verify. And as an accountant auditor, I always trusted and verified. So we need to trust and verify everything that we're doing. without understanding. We're not stupid. I'd rather say we're uninformed. We're uninformed. With understanding, we get wisdom. So let's get some of that wisdom today, if you will. Procedure today. I'm going to ask Ms. Johnson if she'll lead off and give us some comments, then to the detectives from Sarasota, and then I want to open it up to you all. And you can ask questions, you can make statements about what kind of problems you've seen, and we can all react to that. But I ask you, when you do that, you keep it succinct so that we can get as many questions as possible asked and answered. So, Ms. Johnson?
Morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning.
My name is Suzanne Johnson. I've lived in Venice since 1971, so a long time. Seen a lot of changes. I know some of you from past experiences, so I'm eager to give you some information. And I sent this paper that is on your tables. We prepared that, just a little bit of information with some of the scams that we've seen over the past years. I won't go over all of them right now. The one that I really wanted to look at is on page 2, I guess, on the back page. When you're in your emails, the one example here says Wells Fargo, but if you kind of hover over that, it's not really from Wells Fargo. If you look at that, it's got some crazy name and email address. So if you're looking through your emails and you see something from a business that you normally do business with, and I don't necessarily do business with Wells Fargo, but I did get an email from them. This is my personal email. So you just need to be cognizant of what you're getting in your emails, and if it's something that you're not used to seeing, you just don't want to click on anything and see where it's going to take you, because there's always links that they want you to click on to try and get your information in that respect. The next page is romance scams. Keep in mind, I don't know if anybody uses dating sites, but there are places where they will ask for money, and that's where you're going to get into trouble, where they're giving you information, they want money, they're always pressuring you. All of the scammers are looking to find a way to appeal to your sensibilities, appeal to your emotions. So you've got to be very vigilant about what's out there and how they're trying to get a hold of your money, because that's basically what they want, is how to get into your bank account. Let's see some of the other ones. Investment scams on page 4. If you have an investment company and you get emails from them, try and verify that. Either call your advisor. You don't want to click on anything in your emails, or if you have pop-up screens that come up if you're searching on your internet, those are the clickbaits. They're trying to get you to click on something in order to get access to your computer. Never, if you do get a pop-up that says your computer has been violated, you need to click on this link so we can clean it up for you. Please do not ever click on those pop-ups. They're getting into your computer. Right now at my office, we have a client from Northport, and this black hat company has ransomed their computers. They cannot do anything. They're asking for $200,000. Otherwise, they're going to release information on their employees to the dark web. So you've got to be careful what you're downloading on your computer. If you're looking to, it's crazy what they can do and what they can get from just you clicking on a link on your computer. For check fraud, We have a lot of customers right now who are sending checks out in the mail. The mail gets picked up by criminals, and they are washing the front of the check. The signature part, they keep the same. They erase all of the payee information, the dollar amount information. They make it out to an individual, and for thousands of dollars more. So you need to make sure you're looking at your checks. In some cases, we have, it's made out to a business. The business, on the back for the endorsement, they write pay to the order John Smith. Now John Smith has this check and they mobile deposit, so you're not taking it into a bank, so the endorsement is not being read specifically by an individual. That check is then processed and you're now out the funds, and your person that you made the payment to, whether it's FPL or an insurance company, those checks are now written to somebody else, and then the process is where we have to go to the sheriff's department and they have to try and figure out where that money went. So that's another big thing that's happening right now in our office. On the back, I just put some basic additional information where you can go to find information about scams and frauds that are out there. And I also put the credit reporting agencies. You can, what I do monthly is I have a Credit Karma account, and I go in and I check my credit to see what's out there. I did find on my husband's report a card from Nordstrom's that he never applied for. So we called, got that information taken off his credit. Luckily, because I was doing it monthly, it never got to a 30-day notice, so we didn't have a late fee, because then Nordstrom's going to send me a bill saying you haven't paid the $300 that is charged on here. So there are ways you can look for those kinds of credit issues that pop up if your information has already been compromised. And I think that's all I have for right now.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Carlos Verdoni. I'm a detective with the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office. This is Detective Angie Rowe. We've been around collectively, well, with the Sheriff's Office. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for about 23 years. You've been there 20, so we're seasoned. Unfortunately, I'm the elder guy here. But at the end of the day, I wanted to come and tell you a little bit about what's going on and discuss the things that we need to discuss. Some things that I want to tell you, not to brag, but more because I want you to understand who's speaking to you, and also know that I'm going to give you the best available advice that I can give. All right? Like I said, we're both detectives with the Economic Crimes Unit in Sarasota County. We have a specialized unit for this because it's such a big problem. We're also both task force officers with the Secret Service. I'll tell you why in a minute, but the Secret Service is a really great tool for us because of the cyber component, right? Speaking of emails and IP addresses and everything else, you gotta have the tools to attack the bad guys. So therefore, we have to connect with our federal partners, and we happen to be a really good connection with the Secret Service. They don't just protect the president, they also do a lot of the financial stuff. I've been doing economic crimes at least 12 years now. We're both members of the International Association of Financial Crimes Investigators. It's a worldwide group that specifically specifies and specializes on financial crimes. Investigators around the world. It's a worldwide group, obviously international. I am a certified financial crimes investigator as well. So again, I don't tell you that to brag. I tell you more so you know where I'm going to tell you some things. It's going to scare you a little bit, okay? But this is definitely the right idea. For us to combat the bad guys is for us to get together and understand what's happening so that we don't become victimized again. And I can actually tell you a little bit as to why this is happening to the United States of America, and specifically to an elder population. Your generation is a giving generation. And I tell this to people all the time. Back in the day, if your father was driving somewhere and you saw your neighbor pulled over because a flat happened, what would you do? You stop and you help out. We're giving. That's just how we are. They know that, and they meaning the scammers around the world, okay? They're using now the technology to come after us. It was, what was it, like 9 billion?
Yes.
And?
There's 9 billion reported in 2022, lost through fraud through the FTC, Federal Trade Commission. I would say that just because it's reported, probably triple that amount. So you're probably looking at 27 billion that was actually taken in 2022. And the top 2 categories were identity theft and imposter scams. And that was about $5.3 million that was taken as reported.
So let me ask this question to you, because I know we're gonna get questions in a little bit, but let me ask this to you. Who here thinks they've never been compromised and their identity is perfectly fine? Raise your hand.
You're wrong.
You're wrong. Everybody here has more than likely been compromised. Your information is out there. End of story. Can we prevent fraud? That's the goal. I mean, but I'll be honest with you, it's gonna be really, really hard. Why? Because of technology. I don't want you to think that you have to be afraid of your cell phones, because that's not really the issue. Your cell phone won't do anything unless you tell it to, okay? They're not gonna compromise you by you saying, I'm looking for something, and it pops up and says, oh, here's what the information you want. Where you get compromised is when they send you a message or an email, and they say, hey, this is your bank talking to you, and it looks like your bank. And they go like, you need to click on here because your account has been compromised. So what do? You click on it. Well, that's right there, that's where they got you. Never, ever, 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 not ever, 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 click on anything. I don't care if it looks so legit that you're like, oh, this has gotta be legit. Never click on it, especially if it's from your bank. Comcast, whoever your provider is, never click on it. If you see something that you believe might be true, get out of that chat, or whatever they sent you, whatever email it is, go straight to your app, and then go on your app if you have it on your phone, and look in that app. If there's a message that came from the bank, it will be on that app. If you don't see a message from the bank in the app, then it's not true. If you don't like to mess with cell phones, don't go on the app. Call your bank from the number that you know to be your bank. And I tell you this because a lot of scams happen where someone gets a message saying, hey, Amazon, your package will be delivered. You're like, I didn't order any packages. Click here and I'll tell you what stop it's coming on. So you click on it, scam, right? So instead you're like, oh, I'm not gonna click on it, I'm smarter than that. I'm gonna go look up on Google, Amazon. And then you find a number like, oh, Amazon, must be legit, right? So you click on that, and the next thing you know, somebody, and I hate to say it, in India, probably picks up the phone and says, hey, I'm from Amazon, and this is what's going on. And then they take all your information. Oh, by the way, we're actually trying to investigate a case. Can you help us out? We're gonna send you some money so that you can forward it to another person because we're trying to catch the scammers. Does that sound crazy? It is, right? It happens all the time. So if you have a legitimate number from someone you need to speak with, save it on your phone. I have my bank number on the phone. I don't click on anything that I don't recognize, and if I don't have it on my phone, I don't click it. Other things as well, right? You'll get a message from somebody, or you'll get a phone call, and the number comes up as a number, not as a name. I do not answer any phone numbers that I do not recognize. If they want to talk to me, because I'm obviously a very nice guy, they'll leave me a message. If they don't leave me a message, not that important, right? Don't ever, ever, ever answer phones, because what it is, next thing you know, and I'm sure you've seen this as well in the banks, hey, Granny, it's your grandson. And you're like, who? It's your grandson. Which one? Is it Bobby? Oh, yeah, it's Bobby. What's going on, Bobby? What do you need? Well, I got in a bad wreck, and I don't want to call dad or mom because they're going to get really upset. I need you to send me $15,000. I'm going to have a lawyer call you and work this out. Bobby hangs up. Well, Bobby. Next thing you know, a lawyer calls. Hey, your grandson was involved in a wreck. He's in jail right now, making it urgent, right? And I need you to go to the bank and get some money out because we've got to, if we kind of can fix this and pay that person off, we may be able to get him out of jail. So you're like, okay, what do I need to do, right? You go to the bank, you get the $15,000 out. They tell you, do not talk about this. You're under a gag order. You can't mention this to anybody, not even the police. What do? You're trying to help Bobby out, right? You're like, oh, well, Bobby must be needing me. You can't call your son, can't call your daughter because that would violate the gag order. So you go to the bank, you take the money out, then they tell you, put it in a box. We're gonna have a Uber carrier come by and pick it up. Sounds crazy, right? Would never happen, right? Wrong. It happens. All right? So next thing you know, you're sending money off, they call you back. Oh, by the way, we just found out that the young lady was pregnant and she lost the baby. We need another $15,000 for Bobby. Because you can't talk about it, what do? You're gonna help Bobby. Those are the things that we need to hear, think about, and learn about so you don't become victims of that scam. And that's called the grandparent scam. All right? Do not provide on the phone to anybody any information that they don't have. If they say it's your grandson, who? Don't say, oh, is it Bobby? Because at that point, now you've told them who your grandson is. Okay? So these are the things to think about. I hate to tell you this, but I could spend hours doing this because there's so much to it. And we're going to get into it. So the best thing we can do really is move into the question portion because you're going to learn from yourselves. When we do our presentations, we either do them on a PowerPoint, which I used to like. I don't like it anymore, right? Because I can put stuff on the screen for you, but it's really about what you guys want to share with each other because we're going to learn from each other, right? Somebody here, I guarantee you, pulled up earlier and showed me a Costco paper, right? If you could raise your hand, right? He's like, hey, is this a scam? Absolutely it is, and we can tell you why. So we're going to open up to the questions part of it, but I will also leave you with this. It is scary out there. Definitely take the information she's providing to you in the back of this paper right here. If you have not frozen your credit, freeze it. Does not take long. Minutes per credit bureau. Minutes. And why would I ask you to do that? Because your information's already been compromised. So if you freeze your credit and somebody tries to open a Nordstrom's card, guess what they can't do? Open a card. It's frozen. Now, if you're gonna go buy a nice Maserati, you're gonna have to unfreeze it for a couple of days while that goes through the process, or a nice boat, or whatever you're gonna buy, and then you have to freeze it again. But it automatically does it for you. So do not be afraid to try technology, because technology can also be helpful for you. Okay? And then we're not even gonna. We can discuss if you want artificial intelligence. Everybody here know about AI already? All right. A lot of the scams now are leading toward where they record your voice, because the AI portion of the voice can be duplicated, and then when they call a bank or somebody, they can pretend to be you, right? Because the AI portion does that for them. So AI is a big deal. It's definitely something to be concerned about. Again, I don't like to use the word afraid, because then at that point you get into the panic part of it. It can be a very useful tool, but you also have to be very knowledgeable that it can also be used against you, okay? And one more thing I'd like to say about the sheriff's office or any other law enforcement agency in the United States: we will never ever call you to say, hey, you have a warrant, please send us some Bitcoin. Not ever again. Never gonna happen. If the cops have a warrant, what do we do, Andy?
We knock on your door.
Sometimes kick it. It just depends on the person, okay? So don't ever fall for that. Law enforcement will never ever ask for cryptocurrency as a payment, ever. Okay?
Neither will the federal government.
Yeah, neither will the federal.
Neither will the federal government. FPL will never ask for gift cards for payment. What's the other recent scam we had? Don't invest with a company with a very good-looking Asian female with a nice car, sends you a picture, says you need to invest in this company. We could go on and on with all the scams, but crypto is the main one. No one in the federal government is going to take crypto. And by the way, if you get the pop-up, the call that says, oh, we have child porn on your computer, we're not going to call you. We're going to knock on your door. Don't pay them anything. And it costs $500 for the computer. Don't send them 30 grand.
So I'm gonna turn it back over to Mr. Dixon. Like I said, I think the best way to do this is to learn from you. So feel free to ask as many questions as you want.
Okay, we have mics that will be passed out so that you can, we can hear you and hear your question. And I think Mary's got one over here. Yep.
So,
It's on.
okay, so I really appreciate all of your perspectives, and I really thank you for coming and preparing all these things for us. And it is scary, and probably each of us have experienced either ourselves or a family member who has been part of a scam, maybe they've avoided it. And the experience that we had was a family member, it was completely ridiculous what they were saying. She didn't show up to be an expert witness at a court case, and they were coming to her, and they knew her address, and they knew her wherever she was, and then she was by herself, and she was afraid, and she stayed on that phone for a long time, called her daughter. Her daughter finally called the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office said, hang up. So my question to you is, that's good to know. Can we do that? And when we're scammed, how do we get your services to help us? Let's say we don't call the sheriff's office and we are scammed. Like, how do we engage your detective services to either get the money back or to help us?
So first off, you are going to hang up because they're trying to do that. Well, immediately, you can either go to the desk, and the South Desk is now open for everybody down here in Venice if you don't want to go up to Sarasota, or you can call and have a deputy come to your house. Please, please, please keep a copy of the phone number and give it to the deputy who shows up, because we can't do anything without it. If you tell me a random number called me, guess what? They're using a bunch of spoof software where the next time they call it's a different number, and the next time I call them, the number doesn't exist. So report it, report it, report it. Please report it.
What number do we call?
You can call the non-emergency number, which is 941. I know the non-emergency number. I've been here 20 years too. 316-1201. And also, if you do have a question about something that is going on, we do have an email address for you guys. It goes to everybody in the Economic Crimes Unit. It's fraud, F-R-A-U-D. And I'm sorry this is so long, but it's at sarasotasheriff.org. That's sarasotasheriff.org. Do not make reports there, but if you do have a question about what is happening, leave a phone number and we will call you and talk to you about it.
Here, question, could you explain, Carlos, how to freeze your credit? You just go to those numbers or what?
So on the back of the paper, well, you can look up Experian on Google. Make sure that when you look for it, that you're looking for a secured site. It usually says secured. Anybody here not know what a URL is? Okay, so when you go search for something and you type in, let's say, www.experian.com, that is what's considered a URL, isn't it? Perfect. She does have it in here. Right, so basically anything that starts with
Second page.
HTTPS.
Second page.
Second page towards the bottom, like a second to last dot or point. That's what's called a URL. When you look at that, if it has an S, it's tend to be secured, okay? So that's what you're looking for. And you're gonna go to Experian.com, you're gonna go to Equifax.com, and then TransUnion as well. You have to do them separately because they're separate, okay? Once you get to that website, there is a portion on the top that says freeze your credit. You'll click on that. Then it will walk you through the steps. Like, they have to verify who you are first. Usually they ask you, like, what's your first car? Or like, you know, what was your first bank account? Something to that effect, right? And then it'll walk you through the steps as to once you get in, how to freeze it. It's gonna ask you to provide them a PIN number. That PIN number is not to be shared with anybody, okay? But you have to keep that PIN number because that's the only way to unfreeze it.
Can you call instead of go online?
You could call, but it's gonna take you a lot longer. Just keep that in mind. The online portion, it's very, very simple. Okay, then you can definitely call that number and they'll work with you there. But the online portion is easy, just so you guys know. And you would do that for all three of them. Freeze it. Now, let's say you wanna go buy a nice, let's say a Ferrari, because you're into Ferraris, right? You go and you log into the same website. You go to unfreeze. You type in the PIN number that they gave you or that you created yourself. And then you tell it, I'm going to, well, you don't tell anything. I need it to be unfrozen for 4 days. Okay? So at that point, then the credit bureau knows that between these 4 days, there's going to be somebody calling in to say, hey, I need to check their credit to make sure that they're qualified for the Ferrari. And then at the end of the 4 days, it automatically locks it back up for you. So I highly recommend you do that. The reason why is because, again, your information's already out there. How many here have heard about all the breaches that happened, like Marriott Bonvoy, right? As a matter of fact, not maybe last week or so, there was like the biggest breach ever, like the mega breach of all time. So your stuff's out there. And the other thing that I wanted to tell is that if I have your name and your address, or your name and your phone number, based on those two things, I can find out the rest I need to know about you online. So anything you do to keep yourself offline, great. It's not realistic because it's not going to happen. So the only other real way to combat that would be to freeze your credit. One second. Yeah.
So a couple days ago, it was on the news that a couple bought a vehicle for their business, and when they went to go register it, they said it's not your car. So how do we protect ourselves when we do buy a vehicle from a private owner or a small business?
Go ahead. How about first on final fraud?
All right. So stuff like that, it's going to have to involve, well, depending, was it in Florida, number one? Okay. So it's going to involve getting involved with FTLE or also even DHSMV, because obviously they handle all the title fraud. What could have happened, and this is just a guess because I didn't read the article out there, but they could have used somebody's name to open up a car or open up a credit and get a car somewhere, and obviously creating title fraud because it's creating a car with your name that's not really yours. Lucky for us, if you report it to, because they actually have an investigations team with DHSMV, if you report it to them, they can look in to see where the title was made, what company, what car dealer, and they can try to follow the tracks that way. Now, what usually happens, and where so you gotta understand, law enforcement is trying really, really hard to catch these bad guys. I've actually made many presentations and I've told them, my goal before I retire in the next 2.5 years is to be able to go arrest somebody in India or Nigeria or wherever. Will the sheriff let it happen? I don't know, but I'm trying. I am trying. All right. So what they'll do is they'll try to follow up on the car, but sometimes the IDs are fake because they'll take somebody's real information and they'll put somebody else's picture so they looks like them, their picture, and so therefore it may not get anywhere. But then sometimes we get really lucky and you find that there's a pattern, because a lot of financial stuff and even investigation stuff is really about patterns. So if you guys really like those shows that happen out there, like the financials, it's patterns. That's it. If they get lucky and they find a pattern with that car vehicle and they find that there's other vehicles that are like it, just so you know, bad guys do make mistakes. They do. That's how we catch them. So we could get lucky and find out there's a big group and then eventually capture them, right? But that's the goal. That's why we tell you all the time, report it, report it, report it, because we may not be able to solve your crime at the time, but who knows down the line what could happen, right? It could come back up and we're like, okay, now we know about this. So going back to that article, I would say if that ever happens to you where you find out there's a car that's been registered, you start with the DHSMV or call the local sheriff's office or Venice PD. I mean, they're very, we work really well with Venice, and then we can help them as best we can, okay?
This is easy.
Okay, easy question. Sorry, wait here, 1 second.
Your email contact, fraud@sarasotasheriff.org, or is there sheriffs.org?
Nope, it's sheriff.
Singular sheriff, there's only one sheriff, don't let them hear that there's
Two
others.
F's, no S.
SarasotaSheriff.org.
Been involved 30 years.
There you go.
Sorry, Glenda.
Hi,
Hi.
I was defrauded big time. I went to the bank to find out that I had done all these dumb things that you've got written here. And I went to the bank and they said, you will have to call the police. We can't do anything about it. So I called the Venice police. They said, you live in the county, you have to call the sheriff's office. I called the sheriff's office. I was given a number, a case number. They said, someone will call you and come to your house. It never happened. I called the next day. They said, they're very busy, but someone will be there. After about 4 calls to the sheriff's office, I gave up. They never came. At the time I had called, I had these phone numbers, what things that I had done, and I thought that would help catch. I finally just gave up. I never got a call from the sheriff's office.
So let me explain a couple things right there. So first thing that tells me is that obviously the reason why Venice sent you to us is jurisdiction, right?
Yes.
If it's within our jurisdiction, we can prosecute, they can't. So that probably the reason why they sent you to us. Secondly, though, you did receive a case number.
I did.
Okay, that's where I think the confusion is, because if you received the case number, there would be no need to send a deputy to your house. Maybe that's the miscommunication portion of it. Once the case gets assigned, so we talked about going over the process. You make a report, whether you do it with a deputy or you do it at the front desk or online, however you do it. There's several days that go by because all these reports have to be approved and make sure that we have all the information we need. And then the detective eventually gets it usually about 4 to 5 days later, okay? And then you also have to realize, like we have a caseload. So our goal usually when we get the cases is to try to call you right away to make sure that we make contact and we get everything that we needed to do. The other thing that could play into this is how they reported it. Is it a suspicious incident versus an actual crime? Because sometimes suspicious incidents, it's weird, but it doesn't necessarily get assigned to somebody. So that would be things I need to look in. If you want, at the end, if we could meet, I can get the information, and I'll be glad to look into that for you. That's easy fix.
Well, I finally just got rid of it. I never got the call, and this was a year and a half ago.
Okay, well, how about this? Do you want me to look into it? Because I can if you want me to. It doesn't matter how long ago it was.
I don't have any of the information anymore, so.
No problem. Either way, I'd like to connect with you at the end, and we can discuss that further, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
I think I'm next.
Where you at? Oh, there you are.
In 2022, we had a check come through our bank, and it was made out to Walmart. And we went to the Osprey Walmart, and their security started tracking it. And the purchase was not made at the Walmart store in Osprey. It was made in the Walmart store in Oldsmar. It was for $479 and something. And their security called the Tampa Walmart. Meanwhile, I called the bank and I called you all, the sheriff's department. You all had somebody call us back. They were out in the car and they said, we're calling to find out about what's going on. Well, anyway, we wanted to prosecute this individual because they said it had to be a Walmart employee. And the number on the check, that check was in my billfold. So they had changed the number and somehow the bank had not caught that or whatever. But anyway, you all called back, you sent somebody to our house and he did an investigation and then it had to be turned over to that county because it was now out of Sarasota County. It was in the Tampa area. And we never heard back whether that person was prosecuted. They said it had to be a Walmart employee. And so we got our money back from the bank. They didn't question it. They redeposited it right back into our account. But this can happen, and now Walmart will no longer accept a check from us. And that's fine, because we don't want this to happen again. But you all responded immediately. And we got a call, we got somebody come to the house and all of that stuff. But that has not happened since. But that's never happened to us before.
So, what she's talking about obviously is a check fraud, right? By the way, if there's any more complaints, Andy Rose is available for you. You can see him at the end in the corner, and he'll be ready to take those for you. But as far as check fraud, here's a couple things to think about, right? Who here actually writes checks at home and sends them in their mail? From your house, right? Who here has a bank that you could do online banking and you can send checks from the bank? I'm gonna pose this question back to you guys. I'm gonna put this on your side of it. What would be better? And what I'll do is raise your hands at the end, okay? You write your check, which contains what? Name, address, phone number, bank account, what bank it is, what routing number it is. Like everything is on that check, correct? So you're gonna send this payment to somebody and it has all your information. Versus, I'm gonna go on my computer, I'm gonna go to my bank, and I'm gonna do bill pay. That check that goes out, do you think has your information on it? Nope. It has her routing number, her account number, because it comes from the general account. It doesn't come from your account. That's where the money comes from, but it's really their account that it comes from. If it gets compromised, it's not your check anymore. I'm gonna say, what would be better? Raise your hands. Sending out your own check or the banks? Exactly, right? The banks. So in that case, ma'am, I think the reason, and that's the other thing, I think we're very fortunate. Earlier we were discussing living in Sarasota County, living in Venice, right? We are a very, very lucky community. We have really good stuff here, right? We have really good leaders. I mean, the sheriff is a really big proponent on combating fraud. That's why we took it seriously and we got it to where we need to go. We tend to keep our cases in Sarasota County. If a crime happens here, we want to prosecute it to the fullest as best as we can from Sarasota, because we recognize that we may send it to another county or another agency and they may not take the care that we probably would. Not saying they're bad people, but we don't know what their status is. Are they down officers, detectives? Like, we don't really know, right? That's why when you see the sheriff's office posting stuff like we went to Broward County recently and we seized 2 houses and a couple cars, it's because we had a case in Sarasota that we could have very easily said, hey, Broward County, here you go. But we said, why do that when we're gonna take it to the real effect that we need to do? So I appreciate you making that comment. Realize that we're gonna do everything we can to help you out and do what we have to do from Sarasota County. But check fraud, very important. Just like credit cards, we were discussing that earlier as well. Debit versus credit, which one do you think is better? Credit, because it's the bank's money. I think of it as like Vegas, right? Am I gonna go to Vegas on my money or the bank's money? Bank's money. You're gambling all the time. Keep that in mind.
I have 2 questions, actually. We've had credit card information stolen like 4 times in the last year, and these people have made purchases. The last was an airline ticket to Morocco, and but my husband's really good about checking every day charges, and so he called the bank immediately. They stopped it, canceled the card. We didn't lose any money. But what is it safer to, so now I've started tapping my card instead of putting it in or swiping. Is tapping easier? Can they still steal it?
Yes.
They could still steal it, all right.
Yeah, so now we're getting into technology again, right? Credit cards. You have what's it called? A chip card, right? You insert it, have to put your PIN in there, or you have the tapping portion. Like, all those things are virtual credit card numbers that get created that don't necessarily give your number, but can it be hacked? Absolutely, all right? And at the end of the day, that's why I'm saying, if you use a credit card and they charge to Morocco, which I can tell you why they're going to Morocco in a minute, but if you get charged and it's going to Morocco and you call the bank and say, hey, this is not my purchase, they're going to cancel immediately and refund your money. And as a matter of fact, banks are really amazing because they want you to spend more money. They'll be like, hey, sorry about that. We're going to cancel that card and I'll have your card in 2 days. That's what they do. And the reason why they're going to Morocco is because we recently found out that you can get plastic stuff done over there a lot easier and a lot cheaper. So the criminals like to go over there to
Plastic surgery.
do plastic surgery.
All right.
I never would have thought it, but that's the truth.
My
Get a second question.
second question, talking about not clicking, I get email scams every day, and usually at least 2 or 3 of them. I usually just delete them. If you accidentally open it, have you compromised yourself, or do you have to click on a link inside the message to compromise yourself?
You're fine as long as you don't click on the link on inside.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I'm right here.
Sir, hey, how you doing?
Every time I'm getting a package through UPS or anybody, I get another email that says, this is U.S. Post Office. We don't have the information for the delivery to your home, so could you give it to us? Every time. My question is, why wouldn't the post office be looking into this? I mean, you know,
Well, we had a
it's like
question.
it's the U.S. government, you know, and they should be.
You got it. So we talked about this a little bit earlier with someone else. The post office has a post office inspector general in the area. They have their inspectors in the area. There's one guy for 7 counties. So I'm going to assume he probably has a lot of work.
The best way to help him and help yourself is just don't click on it. Don't respond. That's why, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? You're gonna, just so you know, when you walk out these doors, There's no magic spell here that says you guys are not gonna get any more scams, just so we're clear on this. I don't know if that was in the fine print or not, but we wanna make sure. Alright? When you live here, you're still gonna get all these calls and scams and everything else. The important part to remember is, don't click. You don't recognize it, you don't know what, listen, my wife hates it. If she orders something, I know about it. Cause I get the messages. Like I've actually set up in my bank, which I use Chase, I think, or US, I don't remember which one. Anyway, I set up to where if she makes a purchase over $100, I know about it, right? And I have to call her like, hey, what'd you buy? How do you know? Like, listen, the last thing I want is the fraud detective get scammed. So no, I gotta know what you got going on, lady. But just keep that in mind. So just don't click on anything and understand that yes, the postal office does recognize the stuff out there that's happening and they're trying to keep up, but how many people in the United States? This happens to a lot of people.
And
So
you
keep
can do
that in
that
mind.
on almost any card you've got, so if they, I've set a limit on almost, I don't have very many cards, but every one I've got got $100 or $150 limit, and they're really good about getting back to me if somebody tries to charge over.
I'm glad you brought that up. I have maybe 3 credit cards. Some people like to carry 12, 15. I don't know why. I gotta tell you, if I can't buy it with the 3 credit cards I got, I don't need it. All right, just so you guys know. So I'm sure the banks don't appreciate me saying this because I'm taking business from them, but if you don't have to have 15 credit cards, don't. 3 cards is probably enough. And also carrying your wallet. Generational, right? This is generation that we probably all carry our social security cards in our wallet, right?
No.
Thank God, because I've seen it to where people actually still carry them. Like, for what? Like nowadays, nobody should be asking you for your social. I'm still leery about the medicals, portion of it, having to ask for your social for the doctor's office, which is crazy. But I can kind of see why they say, well, if you have Medicare or Medicaid or anything else, so that's how they link it, right? I'm still leery about it, right? So just keep that in mind. Whatever information you don't have to carry in your wallet or in your purse, don't. Because if that gets stolen, you just gave them a treasure trove of things to do. Okay?
My question is directed to Susan.
Hold it up.
Primarily, the mic.
There's the microphone.
Hold it.
Turn towards you. There you go.
You had brought up about shredding canceled checks. Can they use one that's?
She'll repeat it. She'll repeat it.
Hold it closer to her mouth.
Hold it close to your mouth.
She's gotta pull it closer.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Idea.
You had said shred even the canceled checks. Now, I have checks probably 10 years in a file, 7, even 7 years. Can they actually use a canceled check from years ago?
Yes.
They can.
Yes.
They just
Canceled
launder them
checks.
some way how?
Cancel checks, they can be washed at the front. They don't really necessarily, they have their own paper sometimes, and they can transpose that information over. They are very adept in getting that information, so.
Second question, and it's not through your bank, but I have a bank alert on mine that supposedly watches my credit reports and all that kind of stuff and
Right.
make sure all the checks. I feel fairly secure on that. Is that a secure function?
Yes, in most cases, those alerts are set up to protect you, so yes, you still need to be diligent, because there's always a way that they can work their way, their magic, that they can get into your accounts regardless of what you do.
And the third question is, and I don't even own a credit card, but I have certain accounts that I pay out of that have a max on them of $500 or $1,000. So I figure, it's gonna hurt, but it's not gonna kill me if they get into that account. Can they go from one account to another?
If the card is linked and you have like a sweep, some accounts have a debit card attached to it. So if you have a limit on your debit card of $1,000, but then they have if your balance goes down, it'll sweep it from a savings account. So in reality, yes, if they're using, it just depends on the limits. They can sweep money out of there.
Even if we don't have you're supposed to sign a paper saying if you're overdrawn, you could take it from this account, that's called a
Correct.
sweep account.
Mhm.
We have never signed on that, they can't go from account to account, can they?
It just depends on how you set it up, but no, if I can say no, but then it could happen. So you just have to be very diligent in watching your checking or savings. If you do online, I don't know, you said you don't usually use computers, but check your balances. You need to make sure if you're getting paper statements, you need to check to make sure that checks are not being washed and written for a different amount. So yes, you just need to be aware of what's going on in your accounts.
Okay, thank you.
My question, is this on?
Yeah.
My question is about title fraud. I hear about homes and properties, they can take that and you don't know for months that they have gotten in and made other loans. These credit card companies, they don't have anything to do with that, do it? I mean, if you freeze that, that doesn't have a thing. So what is your protection against that?
The clerk's office, I believe, has started a program where you can protect your title online. I know in Manatee County they have it.
They have it here.
They do have it in Sarasota now, so if you go to the clerk's office, you can protect your title and you'll be notified if anybody tries to make a change to your title for your house.
How can they do that? Explain that. How can they actually?
I have no idea.
I don't know that I can explain it, but I can give an example. So my name is Mary P. Dixon, and I have a friend whose daughter is Mary Elizabeth Dixon. I live just off Laurel Road. She lives around the corner from me, just on the corner of Jacaranda and Laurel. She bought a house, Mary E. Dixon. I had signed up for this title awareness program. I got a notice when her new house, Mary E. Dixon, closed. I called her mother and I said, "Oh, I see Mary Beth closed on her house." She said, "How did you know?" And I said, "Because the Sarasota County Clerk's office let me know that somebody named Mary Dixon had just bought a house." I don't know how it works. You sign up, you put in your information about your name and everything, and then they match it. There's some kind of matching system that works, and they notify you. And if I knew she was buying a house around the corner from me, so I wasn't concerned. But if it hadn't been her, I would have definitely followed up then with somebody.
Mary,
Don't give away your money.
Mary, do you have to go to the title office or can you do it online?
I did it all online, and I did it in response to some newspaper article on how to do it, because this is very common.
Say that you were a scammer, how would they get your title?
Well, that's them.
Alright, so if a scammer wants to get your title, you go to the clerk's office, everything's public record. Easy fix.
Public record.
I have a question regarding credit cards again. I have a debit card, I don't use it. I don't know why I control it, that's very
Good.
dangerous.
Yes.
So it's when it's in my wallet, take it out, right? Get rid of it.
Put it up.
If you don't use it, yeah,
But you might need it once.
you don't need a debit card unless you're gonna take cash out of the ATM.
Now, is that bank or credit card debit? Bank
Debit card versus credit card. So,
Hey, there's 4 ways to make a payment. I write a check, which we're said not to use the check. Don't use a debit card. The credit card information now, I give it to the vendor and they've got it on their file. Or I give them my ACH and they go to the bank. Now, which is the least problematic? ACH. But if that gets scammed, that's the best.
What's ACH?
ACH is going through the bank. Yeah.
There's 2 ways. An ACH debit is done electronically from banks to banks. So from FPL, you can contact FPL, I want you to direct debit my checking account for my monthly payment. So that's one way. You contact that company, they go ahead, they will need your banking information. So as long as you've called or emailed them directly without, and I would call rather than email, but they'll probably send you documentation, you will have to fill that out. They will direct debit your account for your payments. You can go onto FPL's site directly if you're a online computer user, which is what I do. I just go onto their website and I pay them directly from my bank account. I don't use my card, I don't use, you probably could use a credit card rather than a debit, don't use your debit card. But those are ACH, so it's Automated Clearinghouse is what it stands for. So electronically bank to bank. So that's probably the better way to use rather than a check or any other credit information.
Now, if I get compromised with my credit card, the credit card company gives me the money right back. You mentioned this lady over here that on ACH, in fact, the bank gave their money back. But you have that information out with the vendor. Now, FP&L gets compromised. Is it easier for the ACH issue or for the credit card? I mean, it's both with the bank.
So here's some things you need to know. If FPL ever got compromised, they're required by law to notify law enforcement and others banking officials. Because obviously that'd be a big problem, right? Let's say 1 million users in FPL get compromised, they have to notify us. That's why we are able to report the breaches, right? So if you were compromised or if FPL was compromised and your information was used, that information will be used to tell the bank, hey, listen, we didn't create this as through the breach that they did, and the bank will still give you your money back.
Gotcha.
So that's why ACH would still be considered the best.
Gotcha.
I have all my bills being paid automatically,
Yeah, they are.
automatically through every month. Is that dangerous?
No, just as long as you keep an eye on it.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Sir?
A minute ago, you said you call to lock your credit. Do you have to do each one individually, or does they?
All three.
They don't notify each other? Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
This lady here, she's asking for a while.
I'm going to go back to the UPS office. Shortly, I had a phone message, or, yeah, and it says, this is the UPS office warehouse. We have a package that is not correctly addressed to your home. And therefore, it's back in the warehouse, and if you want to get it, blah, 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 you call this number or that number. So I went to the UPS office in Venice, which I do on a regular basis business with. And as soon as I walked in and I showed the message on my cell phone to one of the clerks that was working there, she immediately said, it's a scam, don't answer it. And this is not the first time that this has happened. I've had more than just one particular message. So watch out for the UPS scams. Thank you.
Okay.
I've seen it with FedEx as well.
I have several interesting things. One, the post office here, you gotta be very careful there. They tell you to bring it inside, drop it. I went inside, dropped 4 checks. A month later, I received non-payment. Go back to, I know the date, it was the 3rd, 16th day. Got the manager of the post office. I said, did y'all have a sorting problem in here? And stuff got destroyed. What day? Give her the day she come back, says yes. I had 4 checks that got destroyed. Now I'm doing most of my stuff as Easy Pay on there. And then 2 years ago, I've had this Jeep, 1947 Willys Jeep, for about
man.
35 years.
You're a good man. You're a good
I went down there to renew my sticker. The lady says, "Oh, we see that you sold it." I said, "Really?" "Yeah, you sold it up in St. Augustine." I said, "Madam, it's at my house. Come get it. I got a gun." I had to go take my Jeep to Palmetto, get it verified through the Highway Patrol. I had the VIN numbers front and back on the engine mount. They verified all of that. Guess who had to change the VIN numbers? 2 years later, 19 months, cost me $500 with an attorney and a view with the judge. And I had the stamps, the history, and everything. But there's a new scam, and I haven't heard you all mention it. I got an email that says, "Thank you for using us and renewing your membership, $499 and some change. Thank you. If there's an issue, call this number." Well, I knew it was a scam right away. I checked my banking account and then nothing went through. So that's the newest one. They said, "Well, thank you. It was a pleasure working with you. We received your money, blah, blah, blah. But if there's any problems, call this number."
One second, man. So, back to the check thing. That's part of the reason why we keep telling you, if you can do bill pay or ACH, that's the best way, because that way you don't have to go to the post office, have a sorting problem, or the check gets misplaced or stolen, right? Because there are people that steal from the mailboxes, especially the blue ones, right? They'll stick stuff in there, keys are being stolen. So keep that in mind. Those are the reasons why we're saying those are the best practices, helps you kind of prevent that happening from you. I'm sorry about the car, it sounds like keys real excited.
Nice Jeep, love it. What's old is new again in all the fraud world. The revinning of vehicles is popular again. So I don't know if you keep the renewal up to date every year on that Jeep, or you okay, is it a 2-year renewal or a 1 year?
One.
Okay. The popular thing is they search the database because they own a car dealership. When I say they own a car dealership, it's probably a plot of land somewhere with no building on it. And they're able to produce titles and search titles. They will then search for a title and a VIN that has not been touched for a little bit. And then they will take that VIN number, put it on a stolen vehicle, and run around with it for a while. So when they run the VIN, it's going to come back to your 1947 Willys. But it's not a 1947 Willys.
Well, you'll love this. This Jeep was the Jeep that was on the building, the Jeep dealership downtown Sarasota back in the 50s as advertisement. They put it on the roof.
So I'm gonna predict something, you guys are probably gonna meet at the end.
I like his hat.
Ma'am?
I arrived here on December 30th from up north. And on January 3rd, I got on Highway 75 and I was just outside of Sarasota and tried to make a phone call, and all of a sudden, I no longer had a phone attached to a carrier. My husband, I also lost my GPS signal. I got off the highway and went behind a Culver's and got on Wi-Fi and tried to call my husband. He had also lost his phone, use of his phone. At the same time, both of us lost use of our most used emails. And one of our credit cards was being used fraudulently. I have spent 3 weeks down here on the phone or on the computer trying to change everything because of losing our email. If you lose both at the same time, it is very hard to make progress because one wants to identify you with the other. And my husband went to the police in Erie, Pennsylvania. And the policeman said, if you haven't lost any money yet or had to pay anything, and if it involves a credit card, we don't like to be involved because the credit card company does their thing. And so now I'm at the point where I just realized that I really do need to have a police statement made. And it's like, where do I go here? He's there, I'm here.
So that is a lot that we're gonna have to unpack. So bear with me. The problem you're gonna run into is where on 75 were you?
Well, I'd have to, actually retrace my steps, but I got off an exit and went around into a plaza and was outside of Culver's
Alright,
restaurant.
so let's do this.
So-
Just come to the sheriff's
Yeah.
office. Just come to us.
Just say you're at the Fruitville Covers.
Just come to the sheriff's office and we will open up a case because you're a part-time resident of the state of Florida in Sarasota County. Easy done. Okay? So that problem's been fixed. Remember, law enforcement's always gonna ask, where were you, to figure out where the crime occurred. Why? Because jurisdiction. I can't go to court and charge somebody that committed a crime in Manatee County when it has nothing to do with Sarasota County. That's part of the reason why we joined the federal task force. So if we have a case that's gonna be federal, I can go anywhere I need to go, right? So that's that portion of it. Now, what happened to you is a SIM swap. Anybody know what that is?
Yes.
What's it called?
It's a SIM swap.
SIM swap.
So this is where we're gonna get really, really techie, so I hope not to lose you. Every cell phone has a SIM card. That SIM card is related between the phone and the network that it's connected to. For example, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, you name it. Each phone connects to that SIM card in your phone. That's how you get on their network, okay? So the reason why bad guys do the SIM swap is because most times, even banks, I know they like to use it, you have to use two-factor authentication. Anybody know what that is? Okay. All right, so for the ones that don't know what it is, there's apps out there that will let you create a second factor authentication. So if you go to Verizon, for example, and they say put your password in, and if you enabled it to have a two-factor authentication, just putting in your password that they may have stole from you on your computer, it won't help them. Because what they'll do is they'll send an alert to your phone and say, hey, somebody is trying to log in as you, is this you? And on the phone you go yes or no, right? Novel idea, it sounds great, right? Unfortunately, scammers have a way to combat that. What they do is they'll find, for example, if they picked you as a target for whatever reason, wherever they found you, okay? Maybe you have a couple Ferraris, I don't know. But they found you as a victim now and they said, you know what, we're gonna exploit her as best as we can. So therefore, we need to find out everything about her. I can guarantee you that person more than likely already has your credit history, has your information of where you live, both houses, right? Phone numbers, addresses, email address, you name it, okay? So now what they need is that phone, because if I'm gonna log into something, credit card company, or credit card, and they ask for a two-factor authentication, I'd have to be able to answer it. So what they do is they'll create a fake ID, they'll go to AT&T, I don't know what store it is, don't tell me. They'll go to whatever phone company it is and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, my phone's damaged, I need to have that number converted to this phone because I can't afford to buy a new one right now, so I'm gonna use one of my old ones, here you go. So what the company does, obviously they show an ID with your name on it, they don't know any better. Like, okay, sorry, Mrs. Johnson, whatever the last name is, I'll take care of that for you. So they'll convert her phone into whatever number or phone they gave at the time. So now every message and every phone call that she was getting on her phone, because it's deactivated from the network, is going to the bad guy's phone. And the reason why is because they're looking for that two-factor authentication. Sometimes it's a text message.
Do you still get it on your old phone?
No.
Your phone is
Your phone at that point becomes a brick or a paperweight because it's not connected to the network, and that's why they do it. So you may get a message from a bank saying, hey, you just made this withdrawal, is this you? And you say yes for you or no for no, and at that point, if they say yes, then the bank's like, okay, well, it's obviously somebody's on the other side saying yes, so it's legit.
Wow.
And that's what happens.
And we had within 2 days that number, our old numbers that we had since we had cell phones shut down. But they only shut them down for like 30 days and then somebody else gets that number, they put it, recycle it.
Right.
But after we got our new number, my husband immediately went to our bank when this happened, fortunately. But after we got our new number, I'm in a restaurant and get a message on my new cell phone number with the name of our bank saying something was blocked because you withdrew so much money, and my heart about dropped. And now I'm on the new number. And then I realized we have more than that in our account. That's not from our bank. 3 messages like that saying our bank name that is not even, but anyway, on our new number, and I knew they were scam numbers and I just blocked them.
So just so you know, whoever's on the other side of the pond, once they compromise you the first time, they're gonna keep going until they can. They're gonna exploit you as much as they can. They have nothing but time. So,
It's their job.
right,
They sit in a room like this in a cubicle. They sit in a room like this in a cubicle for 8 to 10 hours a day, and all it is to find the victim. And then when they find one on the hook, they're going to the wells dry.
so keep that in mind. Look into that. If your phone ever disconnects from the network, and it isn't temporary, because sometimes it happens, like Verizon, a tower went down, somebody cut a wire, and like, geez, right? But if it's for a longer period of time, then go straight to your Verizon dealer or whatever phone company it is, and let them know, like, hey, listen, my phone stopped working, and they can tell you what happened from there. Somebody raise your hand there.
Yeah,
Yes, back in August, we sent a check down to our friend, you saw the backpack, who many of you know. And he, to this date, has not got that check or cashed it. Now, 2 months after that, we did put a stop payment on it. Can anything be done with that check now, even though we put a stop payment on it?
Yes, those checks can still be washed and reprocessed with a different number, a different payee. So your stop payment is specific for the individual with the check number. But if they have that check, they can erase all that information, change the check number, change the name. Now that stop payment is not going to find that specific check.
So what do you advise? Do we just change new checks or?
You've got to do bill payment, ACH payments, another way to submit to an individual, Zelle. You've got their Zelle and Venmo, those.
What if you shut down that account?
You can, yes, but that doesn't guarantee it's gonna happen again. I mean, they're always, like they said, they're always on the lookout to try and get your information.
Okay, I have one other thing. Right before we left to come down here, we got a phone call that we were big winners from Publishers Clearing, which we've never entered.
Right. Yeah.
And in addition to that, one of our neighbor ladies did do that. And they sent her a check for $600 to be deposited in her checking account. Then they had her number. And they cleaned out that checking account. I also want to say how much I appreciate what you people do. We have a son that's a partner with PricewaterhouseCoopers, the big accounting firm. His total, his responsibility is cybersecurity. He's now working 7 days a week. He's got like hundreds of people working for him on cybersecurity. And he said it's totally impossible to keep ahead of the situation.
to that point, the reason why is because, like Detective Rose said, all they have is nothing but time. Criminals can sit there all day long and compromise you as best they can. Sir, yeah, I'm gonna go somebody with another mic because obviously we want to take turns. But anybody ever have a question? Right here, ma'am.
Just going back to the SIM swap, is there something that we can do to prevent that happening?
No.
Okay.
Sorry. I mean, I can give you roses and what's it? But no, that's not gonna happen.
And I want to piggyback on the check thing that everybody keeps harping on. They lose it in the mail, blah blah blah. Has anybody heard of the app Telegram? Okay, Telegram is a Russian-based app. It's kind of like the new dark web in your phone. If you type in checks on Telegram, people have posted pictures of checks, could be yours, and they pay them $50 for the information. And then all of a sudden they have the ability to create your checks and cash them wherever. So it's one other thing that they're using that we know about.
And a little bit about Telegram. So going back to the dark web, right? Back in the day, that was the biggest scary thing because you could pretty much get whatever you want on the dark web. You know, drugs, whatever you needed, right? Telegram is the same thing. It's just it's not dark. Anybody in this room can download Telegram. It's a Russian-based app you can download on your phone. So the criminals do that, and then they join groups specifically what they're looking for. Like the most recent, I don't know if you guys obviously probably read the news, but there was a gentleman down in Venice that was making some comments, and the FBI did a search warrant at their house, right? Well, that's because stuff like that comes up on Telegram, right? So people can look up different things, they can do different things. I recommend that if you have no reason to use it, don't ever download it, because again, it's from Russia. You can't control the stuff that they put in that app. All right, ma'am?
Yes, I wanted to go back to the washing the checks. Recently, I've had a lot of damage inside my house with the hurricane, and everything's set up the middle of May to start, repairing it. So I met with my public adjuster at my Wells Fargo bank and got my check from him, from my insurance company for the payout. After almost a year of working with him. So I deposited that, he came to meet me, and I said, I want to give you a cashier's check for your 10%, which I did. So I've been, walking around thinking, oh, I'm doing something wonderful using a cashier's check, because all it has is, I think, my name and my Wells Fargo bank on it. Is that a safe thing to do as opposed to giving somebody your personal check with more information, or is it almost the same thing?
No, a cashier's check does not have your personal checking account information on there. It's gonna have your name because we do need the remitter. But cashier's checks, if you're accepting cashier's checks can be fraudulently produced just like your personal checks. So if someone's I'm sending you a cashier's check, it may or may not be a valid check. So you just still have to pay attention to, number one, who's sending me the check? Did I request this? Is it something that I'm actually owed? Or is it just a random, oh hey, here's your reward, here's your cashier's check, now you can deposit it, but hey, send me back some money after you deposit it. That's the other type of scam. It was a shopping scam. We're gonna reward you, we're gonna do this scams, and we're gonna send you a check for $1,200, you get to keep $2, send us back the $1,000 after you do your, whatever they ask you to do. So you do have to be careful with receiving cashier's checks, but if you're issuing a check to someone, you can certainly use a cashier's check, yes.
Yes, sir.
Periodically, I receive text messages from someone I don't know, and it just says hi, or where were you, you didn't show up, that sort of thing. I immediately block that number, but of course there are billions of numbers out there, phone numbers. So I'm just curious, as you know what they're really after, just information about me?
No, they want your money.
So let's talk about that scam. Again, you guys are picking the good ones because they're really in depth. You will get a random text. Like I literally was at a conference
For fraud.
with a whole bunch of other investigators, and I get this random text saying like, "Hi, it was so great to meet you at Griffin Park, California, and it really, it was really nice to talk to you." And I'm like, "I've been in California." I was like, "Oh, it's great to meet you as well, right?" And she goes, "You know what? You're so nice, so polite. My name is such and such." And she just started asking me different questions. Obviously, I'm not giving her information, but at that point, she piqued our interest because I got a whole bunch of guys around me and gals, and we just started feeding them information. And literally, what it was, it's called a pig butchering scam. If you Google that and look up the news, it is a really big deal right now because what they're trying to do is get you to eventually provide like an investment. Usually, it leans towards cryptocurrencies, but it can be also cash or money. It's called pig butchering. If you look that up, I'm not telling you right now, it's gonna blow your minds. But yeah, they will randomly text you and say, "Hey, it was great to meet you." And you're like, "Yeah, I don't know who you are," but they'll still strike up a conversation with you because they're trying to get that connection. Now, they're really successful, and please don't take this the wrong way, but they're really successful with the elderly population because obviously now they've connected somebody that may not be talking to a lot of people that are kind of lonely in a way. That's why romance scams are a big deal, right? Because somebody's giving you attention, and the next thing you're talking like, "Oh, well, you know what? I got a fail-safe investment plan. Here, send me some money or cryptocurrencies," and back and forth, right? So keep an eye out for that. If you don't recognize it, you did the right thing. Just delete it. I'll be honest with you. Again, if I have a number on my phone that I do not recognize, I ignore it and move on, because if they wanna talk to me, they'll leave me a message. Same thing with text messages. You're gonna get random text messages, whether it be UPS or everything else. If you don't recognize that number, get rid of it, and just delete it and move on, because there's no reason to click on anything. No reason whatsoever. Yeah?
Is it possible, and how frequently, if you keep your credit card like in your wallet or your purse, for someone just to walk by you closely and get that information? Do you need the devices that they sell, the metal things to keep your credit card in?
That's a tough question, because can it be done? Yes, it's been proven that people can steal your information by walking by with a reader. The likelihood of that,
Not
very big. But can it be done? Sure. If you want to buy something that they're promising is going to protect you, that's, buyers beware. I personally don't think you need it, but then again, that's just my opinion, not anybody else's. It doesn't represent the sheriff's office either. Just be careful. If you're gonna buy something, because usually I get the question about LifeLock and other things as well, right? Like, hey, is that gonna prevent me from being scammed? Answer is no. LifeLock is not gonna prevent you from being scammed. What LifeLock will do, and some other companies, is that they'll monitor your stuff so that if you do become scammed, they can say, hey, we recognize that this might be a scam. Do you know about it? But how are they going to recognize it and notify you after you get scammed? So, you know what I'm saying? It's what you're paying for. They're monitoring it for you, but not preventing it. So just keep that in mind, all right? It doesn't hurt if you want to have it, but I don't think you need it. Now.
Yes, my sister-in-law was in an airport and had already went through and boarded the plane, was sitting there waiting for takeoff, and they came to the speaker on the plane and said, they called her name and said, "Are you on the plane?" And she thought, it scared her to death, thinking something had happened, and she raised her hand. So they had to look at her ticket, her ID, and everything right there in the plane to confirm that it was her, because somebody else was trying to board the plane with her information. And the only way they could have gotten it would have been when she had her phone or something out, while she was sitting there in the airport, and she had to get everything new, credit cards, everything.
All right, so what we're talking about there is, for example, you buy a ticket, you're gonna fly somewhere. Most airlines nowadays have a QR code, so you can just scan it when you walk up to the plane. She must have had it open. Somebody probably took a picture of it, because a picture of it will do what they need to do. But luckily for us, sounds like TSA was on the job that day and problem solved. So, it's a scary thing, you're right. But luckily there's fail-safes in there. Ma'am?
I just wanted to thank you. We were involved with the check washing scam, and your department, the Sarasota County Sheriffs, they called me a year later now. They said they're still looking into the case. So thank you so much.
We tried. Sir?
How about these political texts that you're starting to get, either asking for votes or money? And if you reply a no to them, is that harmful? Or just stop?
I don't know how to quite answer that without setting people off. I don't reply to them at all. My wife is affiliated with not my party, and she was getting text messages from Arizona and Pennsylvania, so you can figure it out if you are up to date with the news, asking for donations and her time in those states. And she goes, "I have a Florida number, why are they texting me?" I go, "Why do you think?" It's just, I just delete them, It doesn't, I wouldn't even type NO on it, it's not worth your time.
I mean, some of the legitimate ones, when you reply stop, you'll get a reply from them saying you're off the list.
You're never off the list.
I just wanted to mention carrying that number where you see a number you don't recognize. And mine was carried into something really strange. I was having lunch with about 4 other gentlemen, and we were sitting there, and I got a phone call, but a name was on there. I didn't recognize. Usually it's a contact, that's the name. And so I didn't answer it, but I said something. I said, I got a call from Joe, and somebody in the group knew him. So I did call it back, and he said, "I never made a call." And even, I just happened to and I've had some of those since, where I've actually, one other time, I looked it up in the phone book, because it was using my area code, I looked it up in the phone book, called the person, and they never made that call either. So they not only use your area code, so it's in your area, but now they're using names of people in your area.
Yes, there are several apps out there that we use in law enforcement that are available to everybody else. I can make my phone number any number to call you. It's used a lot in our ability because a lot of times we didn't have work phones back in the day, so we would use these apps to give you a fake number to call, so you wouldn't know my actual personal phone number if I was talking to a victim. And I don't want you blowing me up at 2 o'clock in the morning when you have another question. So, and we also use it for our undercover stuff. We are able to record those phone calls through this app, but if you look at the phone number, you have no idea. It comes as a 941 area code, and it's just a number we made up. If it happens to be your number, I'm sorry.
Or sometimes, keep in mind that the criminals are looking for you to answer the phone. So they're gonna use your own area code, whatever number they pick, and sometimes it's attached to somebody, right? Because they're trying to get you, like, if it's a number from, let's say, California, and you have nobody in California, then you're not gonna answer it, right? But if it's a 941 number, somebody local. So that's the reason why they do that.
Yes, sir. I was curious, how often are these, how often are these,
Is how often are these scammers apprehended on say, the Sarasota Sheriff's Department? How often are these people actually arrested? And on a state, county, or federal level, and what kind of penalties are these people looking at? That's what I'm really curious. I don't think much, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, so.
Do not go there. Do not go there. Wrong question, sir, for what you're gonna, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, touch first, Dr.
We've had some issues revolving around jail time for these individuals. We'll bring up the Publishers Clearinghouse before. We actually were able to arrest a gentleman. He was in Broward County, Florida, but he had basically done it to, I think they had 19 victims in the United States. One of them happened to be in Venice. At the time, we knew he had roughly $500,000 in his bank account that he had scammed from these people. By the time it went to trial, 2 of the people had passed away. And so for stealing $500,000 through a very complex scheme, he got a grand total of 19 months in prison. On the back end of that, a gentleman who was buying tires with people's credit cards all over the state of Florida, we decided to take that to a statewide prosecution because we had victims all over the state of Florida. We never stepped foot in a courtroom, and that gentleman got 6 years in prison. So,
I love that question because this is where it comes to you now, right? Going back, I like to always push it back your way, all right? He's not wrong. You can choose as a federal task force guy, you can take a choice of making the case federal. Most time the federal side of it, you have to have a certain amount of money. So if you come in and say, I got 10,000 was stolen, they're not gonna look at that. It has to be higher than that. It has to involve a lot of victims, usually, right? But if you're gonna go federal, you also realize that it depends on what federal judge is looking at the case, because they may say, not that big of a deal, slap on the wrist, have a nice day, which was that case that he's talking about. Sergeant Jason Friday, yes, Sergeant Jason Friday, just the facts, ma'am. Actually prosecuted that case. He was the lead detective in it, and he did a phenomenal job and got that guy. Going back to what I said earlier, we in Sarasota, thanks to the sheriff, take this very, very serious to the point that they allow us the mobility and the tools to be able to go and charge people around the state. The statewide prosecution, again, they're looking out for the citizens of Florida, right? And the AG's office, again, also takes it very seriously, right? But going back to the statutes and the laws, there is obviously in Tallahassee a place that sits there and comes up with the laws and the penalties. They're the ones that dictate, if somebody comes in and steals 30 people's identity, there's minimum mandatories that they should have to do in jail. End of story. If those statutes continue to get progressive and be more aggressive, then maybe those guys won't walk out after 19 months. All right? We're fortunate in Sarasota. We have a prosecutor, Andrew Van Sickle, who is a very, very, I'll call him a bulldog. He's very aggressive in a good way because he will not let any case just go by the wayside. We've worked many cases together. We put a lot of time into it to the point where if something happens in Sarasota County, even though it also may touch other counties as well, the statutes allow us to take the case here and prosecute it here, which he's like, bring it, let's do it. And that's how we get a lot of those cases from Broward County. So again, Sarasota County is a very proactive county as far as fraud because we recognize that it's really, really bad right now, and it's gonna get a lot worse. And the only real way now to kind of try to prevent it, like I said, you're not gonna walk out with a saving grace, right? You're still gonna get scammed or attempted to, right? But now you have the knowledge, and this is why we like to do these presentations because obviously we want you guys to learn how to protect yourselves.
Last year, roughly 4,100 calls or reports came into the Detective Bureau at Sarasota County. Of those reports, 1,500 of them were fraud related. There are 3 detectives, 2 investigative agents, and a sergeant working 1,500 cases for the year. That's not including our long-term investigation that we talked when we went to Broward County. We were on that case for 2 years investigating it. So in the meantime of us trying to get to your cases as well, if something were to happen, we're trying to do this on the back end. So to break it down, 40% of the cases that come up there are fraud. 40% of the cases in Sarasota County are fraud.
Can I thank you guys for one major issue here? I talk to friends and all, and I'm always shocked when they are surprised that I use electronic payments almost on everything. You know, I've got my bank account set up that way, I've got ACH, and I run into so many seniors that don't feel comfortable using those services because it involves the computer or their cell phone, and they just don't feel real skilled at using those instruments. And I would, challenge everybody that's here to get over that fear, because it's obvious from what you all have said that that's one of the biggest problems is that we're using checks rather than these electronic systems that protect us. So I really appreciate you emphasizing, that issue. And I think everybody here, if they're not comfortable setting those kinds of things up, should get in touch with a grandchild or somebody that really understands it, and get yourself set up to where you can use online payments and ACH.
Would there be a way, when we're knowing that we're getting scammed, that we could implement a virus into their system?
You watch too much YouTube, sir. There is a guy in Florida, Scammer Anonymous or something is what he goes by. He's in the IT field, he hacks into the scammers' computers and he deletes their files and everything else and takes their money back. We do not do that. We cannot do that. We are not allowed, we're bound by the laws of the United States government, we cannot do that. So, no, I'm gonna tell you, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, you gotta remember, like, as law enforcement, for us to do anything with somebody else's network or computer, we usually have to get a search warrant and everything. We have to go to the proper legal route. I would love to be able to hack them and just do things, but unfortunately, it doesn't happen. Maybe when I retire, I'll move to a non-travel country and then I'll become a fraud fighter. I don't know. We'll see.
Another question, I've got a dad at home that likes to surf the web and not know what he's always clicking on. And he ends up clicking on things that might just say an ad on there, or of course it always seems to pique the interest of what he's interested in, probably because he's Googled it and next thing you know everything's popping up. Can they get into, if you just go and click on these links to start surfing and what have you, if they have a way of like getting into your computer, or what can you do about that?
So your father must know my father. Yes, Any link that you receive is a way into your computer or your cell phone. That's why we keep preaching, don't click the link, right? Because the moment you do, they can infiltrate with code enough to be able to get whatever you need. Just so you know, when you buy it at the store, your brand new laptop, you just got it, you're like excited about this, right? Well, those computers already come set up with team support. So basically, if you have a problem with your computer or laptop, Microsoft or whoever is the operating system can log into your computer and help you. Well, bad guys know this because it already comes pre-installed, ready to go. You don't even have to turn it on, it's already there. So most of the times when they call you and you click on something or you're on the phone with them and they say, hey, I gotta be able to work on some things on your computer, that's how they get in, because you allow them access to your computer, and the next thing you know, they're manipulating things, and they show you one screen, but in the background, they're doing other things to your computer as well. So try not to fall for that. That's called a tech support scam, all right? Don't fall for that. Also, if they ever call you and say, hey, this is Microsoft, we have a problem with your computer, that we had a diagnostic that happened, and we recognize that, something's wrong, I need you to go ahead and turn it on for me so we can look at this. That should be a clue. If your computer's not on, they are not in your computer, right? But people fall for that. And so it goes back to what the gentleman was saying earlier, right? We're not trying to scare you. And that's not the goal, but it is the goal, right? It is scary. It is scary. But what we're trying to do is tell you is that don't be afraid of technology, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, there's no way around it. It is what's happening. So you're better off learning about it now and how to protect yourselves, because there are many ways to protect yourselves. Putting alerts on your bank, sending out ACH. All these things are there for you to use. So don't be afraid to use it. And at the end of the day, it's just knowing about it. This right here is phenomenal, because you guys are hearing from yourselves some of the issues you're seeing, and you're also hearing from yourselves some of the solutions, and also from us as well. So I commend you guys for doing this.
Just one more thing, I think you mentioned at the beginning AI.
Yes.
Can you explain more about AI? Because there was something on TV about somebody that made it sound like it was their child calling, and it really is not.
Okay.
We'll do a role-playing scenario here. I call you up as a scammer, and I go, hi, is this Lisa? No, this is Dawn, or whatever your name may be. Oh, do you live at 1234 Main Street? No. Okay, are you married? Yes. Do you have kids? Yes. They're recording all that. And then they call your bank, and they just play it back. And so the bank goes, oh, who am I speaking with? Dawn. Is this your password? Yes. That's how AI works. And they'll create a whole conversation with you that is needed. But that's if they call you and you hear like a clicking noise right off the bat before you get on the phone, they're usually recording you for that purpose.
And also, I think banks can also chime in on this one. The banks themselves are using AI to protect you, but also to recognize who you are. So an example would be Capital One. I know for a fact, because I know many investigators over there, they're pretty proactive on fighting fraud, to the point that we're really good partners with us when it comes to law enforcement. Like, not a lot of banks, most of them will, but not a lot of banks will give information quickly, right? That's why you have to join organizations to be able to get to know somebody. Usually it takes months and months because of subpoenas and everything else that we have to fill, send it to them, then the legal compliance gets it, risk gets it, they go, okay, we can go ahead and answer this question now. And they may only give you a portion of what you're asking for versus the pattern that I need to see. Well, Capital One is the opposite. They're very proactive. They have AI constantly looking at the purchases, so they can tell, like, hey, you just made a purchase in China, but yet we just saw that you're in Venice. Like, can you explain? Right? And so those are good things that are happening with AI. What Detective Rose talking about as well is that the AI computer is capturing the voice and then making your voice again. It's really what is happening. So whatever you answered with the first 5 questions, after that, after it captured your voice, I can literally type on the computer what I wanted to say, and it's gonna sound just like you. That's how scary it is. So, I'm not trying to scare you, but that's the truth. So keep that in mind, that if they're asking you questions that they don't need to be asking you, don't answer them. And then going back to the phone call, if you answer the phone, here's what I do. My phone rings, If I don't hear somebody talking, hang up. Because what happens if you hear enough seconds, you'll hear a beep, and what they're doing is they have some computer program listening for somebody to speak, like hello, and then at that person they bring in the person to talk to you. But if they don't hear anybody talking, they just recognize it to be done and move on. Sir, you go both raise your hand, so whichever wants to go first.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I haven't had this happen recently, but it has been in the past couple of years where someone will call and say, "Can I please speak with Frank?" And I say, "You've got the wrong number." "Well, maybe you can help." And that has happened quite a few times. And I don't know what they're after, but.
The root of all evil, money.
I was just gonna let you.
Before you do that, Susan has an appointment she has to go to, and I just want all of us to express that. I think we've pretty well exhausted our questions, have we not? Oh, no, okay. Couple more.
Okay, but let me just say what I was gonna say then. On your phone, you know, there's a setting on your phone where you can not accept any unknown callers. And any person that's not in your contact will go immediately to voicemail. If they want to leave you a message, they will, and then you can put their name and number, contact if you want, and your phone number. But if you go to settings and go to phone, scroll down through that, and it's almost at the bottom, and it says something about turn unknown callers on or off.
So while that is a great feature for you guys, the problem we run into is when we call you,
Yes, I know, but you
we have a number that's a generic number for the entire sheriff's office.
Right.
And I can't leave a message.
Oh, you're not allowed to leave a message?
No.
Well, then in those cases, I guess you gotta turn it on. When you're expecting something, well, I do that for a doctor's office. When I'm waiting for them to call me back, I toggle back
The
and
message
forth.
reads, this number is no longer accepts numbers from unknown callers, and it just hangs up on you.
Oh, that is bad.
So again, good idea, but at the end of the day, if you see a number that comes up and you don't know it, let it go to voicemail. Because at that point, you know, if they're gonna leave a message, they leave a message and go from there.
Just a really quick question. Going back to freezing and unfreezing our credit, do you know if that happens instantaneously when you do it online, or is there a delay in that?
Instantaneous.
Great, thank you.
Sir, right here. Next row, all right.
And there's a question from this side of the room, and it's, when you have a doctor's appointment coming up and you're allowed to go in and do a medical check-in online before your visit, so you don't have to go early and do it.
Is that a good idea? So just so you go, on the medical side of the world, they're required to, whatever software they're gonna use, it has to be security compliance. So if you have it set up through your hospital or through your doctors, where you're gonna check in for a procedure or we have an appointment coming up, whatever they're using as their software has to be secured. So I would say you're okay. I wouldn't. Oh yeah, because anything. Okay, so that's a different question. Can it be hacked? Absolutely. Anything can be hacked. All right, your car can be hacked. Your car is a computer nowadays. So just keep that in mind. But they're supposed to have a secure network.
Okay, I don't think anybody's mentioned Facebook. And several years ago, I had a friend request, and it was somebody I knew, a very good friend, and I thought, oh, well, I should befriend her. You know, a really good friend. So clicked on the friend request. And then the saying came through, they just wrote things about, hey, I've got this really good offer, you know, and it's a really good deal, and I want to pass it on. I thought, this doesn't sound like her. And so I phoned her, and no, she had been hacked, and she says, oh, I'll change my password. Well, I'm very leery of doing it. She said it had happened to a bunch of her friends too, and they go from one to another from Facebook, so I'm leery of befriending them. And what they were going to be after, some offer, they wanted money. And so on Facebook even, they're using that.
Yes, they, I had a friend request from my wife's deceased grandfather, a couple of months ago.
So how that works basically is you get the friend request. I got it from my aunt 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and I let her know because obviously I was already friends with her. Keep that in mind. If you get a friend request from somebody you're like, I think we're already friends, do your search first before you accept it. Because if you're already friends, you know that's a bad account. Bad actors can create accounts easily. You can report that account. There's a way to report it on Facebook. I don't know where the spot is, but if you search it on their search bar, if you see an account that you know is a fraud, you can report it to Facebook. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I was fortunate that I went to DC about 2 years ago, and I got to go to the Facebook campus. I can't tell you much about it because obviously they told me I couldn't, but they are very proactive at keeping an eye on things. But unless somebody reports it, they don't know about it. So.
Okay, so she was gonna change her password, was that good enough or not?
No,
I didn't
because that
think-
password can be hacked again.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two is the reason why they want you to friend request it is because the moment you do, your friends now become available to them to be able to friend request them as well.
And it went from one to another, so I just
Exactly
stayed
it.
completely away from it, even though she was a good friend, I thought I'd
Delete.
contact her another way.
Delete, and then you friend her directly, separately. Again, that's the thing I think about. You may get a friend request, but nothing says you have to accept it. You can delete it and then go do it from your phone to them, to your actual friend, versus the scammer. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to thank you for what you've done, and how often do you do this?
Oh, these presentations?
Yes. And where's the next one?
I try to do them all the time. The sheriff's office will do them if you ask. If you want to write this down with the,
No, the sheriff.
information at sheriff.
Is there information about sheriff?
So.
I'll look up.
We're gonna give you a place that you can email, and if you would like to have a presentation like this, we do them at least 3 to 4 times a year. Like last year, I know we did it at the community center here, during the early part of the year, around April probably. And then we did the last one at there's another church that was on campus that advised us. So the place, if you want to request a presentation like this, is at info, I-N-F-O, at Sarasota Sheriff, one sheriff, remember that, .org. There's only one sheriff. Ma'am? Info at Sarasota Sheriff .org. And also, if you enjoy this, please let them know as well. They really enjoy that.
How are we doing?
It's not a question, but I just wanted to read to you a message I just received.
As we speak.
The USPS package arrived at the warehouse, but could not be delivered due to incomplete address information.
And what are we gonna do with that?
Delete. Please confirm your address.
Delete.
Are you expecting a package from the USPS?
Even if you are, delete.
It says, Rimming, a key, 418 at Gmail.
Delete.
Delete.
Delete. Are you expecting that
So
back?
that's the second time.
Yeah,
Keep deleting it. Because they're waiting for you to click on it. I like you guys are fast learners. I love it. How are we doing?
So delete and not block?
There's no point in blocking it because what they'll do is they'll come up with another number or another way to do it. So.
About the Telegram, if you have Telegram and you only read messages and you don't talk, you don't do anything, or you don't ever answer anything, is that, like, are you saying delete? I mean, this is, you get daily information direct from Israel, that's the only reason I'm not.
So,
There's the internet, and then there's the dark web, right? You have the what's at the light, everybody's Facebook, Google, everything like that. Then you have the dark web where all the bad stuff happens. Telegram's the same way. There's the good part of Telegram, and then there's the bad part of Telegram. You're only going to the bad part if you want to go to the bad part.
I'm not saying you can't have Telegram, but if you have a purpose for it. Obviously you do. You're getting the news you need to get from Israel and everything else, that's fine. But keep in mind that is not a US-based app. So they're not, I can't send them a subpoena. They will not reply to me. Because why? They're not from here. The creators were from Russia. I'm not saying that they work with the Russian government because there's been articles that they don't. The way they see it is they want to create a platform for people to be able to communicate however they want with whatever they want, and nobody have to tell them that they can't do that. The problem with it is, like anything else, is that it can always be exploited, right? The bad guys now know I can have a safe place to go and communicate with other bad guys, and they're never gonna catch our stuff because we can't serve a subpoena. So, if you wanna use it, feel free, just know where it's from and know what it's about. More than likely, you will not have any issues, but then again, like, more likely you've already been compromised, so what's the big deal?
My husband and I just received a check. We don't know who it's from. What do you do? Again, I know you've talked about that before.
Call us, leave it in the original package, and so we can take the report. And it's probably, they probably want you to deposit and send something back, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a fake check from someone else's account. So once you deposit in your account, the person whose account it actually has come from, they're gonna file the fraud with their bank, and then they're gonna debit your account for the funds.
So just so I can translate for him, so you can actually hear me, keep it in the package because obviously we're looking for fingerprints, right? If it's a bad guy sending you a check, we want to kind of figure out. Sometimes they're smart and they wear gloves, sometimes they're not. But yeah, definitely, if you don't recognize something, don't fall for that scam where you receive the check, you cash it, like, oh my God, we paid you. Obviously, it's the wrong check. We should never have that. Can you send us a check back for that money? You weren't the right recipient. And the next thing you know, you're sending your own money because that check was bad anyway. So keep in mind, don't fall for those scams. That's what this is all about. Are there any other questions? Listen, I got energy. I usually feel Donahue running from side to side. Luckily for me, I got a young man and a young lady over here doing that work for us. So if you have questions, I'm all about it. If not, we can conclude and I'll be around to answer any single questions you guys need.
I think we need to adjourn, and I again would like to thank those that came.
I'm going to mention three things. Number one, I will never send you an email asking you to buy gift cards that I need to hand out. Correct? Because we've had a lot of folks that have gotten an email, Pastor Tom, would you go get these 6 or 7 or 8 gift cards? And don't tell anybody because I need to do this quietly. I'll never do that, okay? Second thing, I'd like you to say thank you to our deacon body for providing this for you. So, and the third thing, I want you to thank John Carver for not allowing our parking lot to get packed. So you got a good place to park today.
Yes, sir.
So before we're done, I'll finish with this from the sheriff's office. Again, we're very proactive. Our sheriff is very proactive. If you get a chance to run into him somewhere, let him know that you appreciate this, because obviously the more he knows, the more he's willing to be more proactive. And maybe someday he'll send me over to Nigeria. Right? But just keep that in mind. We really appreciate it. If you don't use Bitcoin, don't go to a Bitcoin ATM. You'll help me out tremendously. All right? Please. Anything, Andy? So just little thing about Andy this morning. He came over, he lives in Lakewood Ranch. And he came over the bridge this morning.
Yeah, really wrong.
And he saw a whole bunch of cars.
Yes.
And he goes, is this for me? I'm like, oh yeah, pal, it's all about you. They're here for you.
Let me close with prayer. Father God, we just thank you that we can come together and not just fellowship, but understand and get knowledge. And Lord, we just pray that this knowledge, new knowledge that we've gotten today, we can put to use so that we're not scammed. Be with us, Lord, and protect us. We pray in Christ's name. Amen. Amen.